Hey guys, I'm Isabella Jane, and today I am going to show you my top 5 book series. The first 3 I have are technically considered children's or middle grade books, but I love them so much I reread them all the time. I reread all 3 of these series this summer, so I think they still count. So the first one of this video is the Anne of Green Gables series by Ellen Montgomery. This is the first book. There's 8 total. And the first 6 follow Anne, and then the last 2 follow more of her children. But it is such a good book series. I love these so much. They're very, very descriptive of like Canadian countryside, but not over the top, not Dickens level kind of description where you're drowning, but just really beautiful. And then the characters in the books are so fun and unique and spunky and spirited. I mean, these take place turn of the century, like 1870s to World War I, and Anne, she could be from our era. I mean, she is so modern in her own way, and I just love what the author did with her and being able to follow her and watch her grow up. My favorite types of books, I think, are the kinds where you get to see them as children all the way through when they're married. I love to see that progression, how they grow up, how their character qualities change, and how they get better or worse depending, but just really getting to see their full story. I feel like when you just have one book, you miss a lot of character development and a lot of potential, which is really sad. So I enjoy the full series that lets me really see the character in every aspect. This book follows Anne Shirley, an orphan on Prince Edward Island in Canada. She is adopted from Nova Scotia to Prince Edward Island by accident. It was supposed to be a boy that Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert, their brother and sister, they were supposed to adopt a boy, and they got Anne by accident, and they decided to keep her. And so this is the story of her growing up in a new life and finally being loved and having a family of her own and what that looks like for her. People often will kind of complain about the Anne series in a sense because of those last 2 books. They really just, they're not my favorite. I definitely love 1 through 6 the best. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. That's what I reread this summer. Those are my absolute favorites. Nothing wrong with 4, just don't love it. But I think that 7 and 8 are really neat. I think it's cool to see your children, but it almost doesn't feel like it's the Anne series anymore. 8 was really interesting because it did focus just on 1, so it focuses on her youngest daughter. So I feel like it's almost carrying on the legacy, whereas book 7 is all her children, so that felt a little bit jumbled. But the other books are really, they kind of make up for it because they're just so wonderful in what they have, and the plot lines are always exciting. It's not the giant twists and turns, but it is really interesting, and you have to know what's going to happen to her, and she doesn't keep her life devoid of sorrow, but they are still cheerful books, and so I just love them. The next book I have is the Elsie Dinsmore series by Martha Finley. There are 28 of these. I read through book 16 and gave up because it's insanely long. I don't know how she wrote all of these. This is similar to Anne, where when it reaches a certain point she's like, okay, enough about Elsie, let's move on to the next set of characters. And so then it's her children, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the Elsie series anymore. It's a different series. I reread books 1 through 7 this summer, and I could have even gone through 8 and been happy, but after that it kind of trails. My sister's read the whole thing and loves them. I'm happy to stick with books 1 through 7 or 8, but 1 through 7 and 8 are really, really good. This is a Christian series that came out in the 1860s-ish, that span, so it goes through the Civil War and before and after all of that. This book follows Elsie Dinsmore, our heroine, as she struggles because she is an 8-year-old girl living with her aunts and uncles and grandparents on a plantation in somewhere in the South. We don't know the state, but her father has never come home. She's never met him. When she was born, he wasn't there, and he's never come back, and now he's arriving, and she is desperate to earn his affection. They're a little bit over the top, for sure. There's definitely, she's almost perfect, which can be frustrating. But I don't think it's bad. I think it really does help give you the right picture of what you would want to strive for. So she's not exactly human, but she is loving, and she is someone that you can look up to. And we do get to see some of her flaws and some of her struggles and her hardships as the books go on. So I feel like actually book 1 is probably my least favorite. I really liked book 2 is really dramatic, book 3 is really good, 6. So I feel like as she gets older, you get to see more of her problems in a sense, and it's a little bit less of perfect Elsie was sitting at her desk and made a mistake and cried for hours. It's more of she was living her life, and here's what's happening, and here's the war, and here's the deaths, and it just becomes a lot more real as the series goes on. So don't judge it by book 1, but it is encouraging and beautiful and gorgeous descriptions of the South, and just a really good encouragement for Christians. There's a lot of scripture in here, and I really enjoy being refreshed through this series. The next book I have is up there with Anne for my top book series ever. Like, those are the two favorites, and it is the Betsy Tacy series by Maude Lovelace. This book that I'm holding is actually technically book 5. She wrote books 1 through 4, and they're written for children, like for beginner readers, so 8 to 10. And then these are more for the middle grade and up readers, or adults if you're me. And so I like starting with when she starts high school. I kind of skipped the kindergarten books. I read the first 2 when I was little, but these I enjoyed a lot more. And obviously at my reading level, the other ones are a little too slow for me now, so I just start with book 5. This one is Heaven to Betsy, is the very first high school book, and there's 6 of these total. It goes from high school, and each book is a year of high school, a year abroad, and then when she gets married. Again, a series that really lets you go all the way through. I love seeing her grow up, I love seeing her mature, I love seeing her friends grow up and what their lives turn out to be like. This book follows Betsy Ray and her 2 sisters and her parents, and they live in Deep Valley, Minnesota, and it's her life through high school as the people she meets and interacts with and what it's like growing up, and then as she travels off into the real world on her own. What's really fun about these is that they are semi-autobiographical. So the author wrote these based off her journals and her life, turn of the century in Minnesota, but the character names are all changed, and for example, she doesn't meet her husband until after college. In these books, she meets him freshman year of high school, so it's a little bit different. She wanted to bring him in and be a part of her stories, but they are just so much fun. They are so relaxing and cozy, but it's not like it's the most amazing Jane Austen writing you've ever read, and yet I think that her characters in this book are more real and jump off the page more than practically any other book I've read. I really feel like I absolutely know Betsy and that she's got to be one of my best friends because we like talk all the time, clearly. And when I read, that's the feeling that I get, and that is so special, and I feel like that's kind of hard to find. Like, there can be characters you love and connect with really well, but to have a character that you feel like you could whip out your phone and text them, even when they lived 100 years ago, is amazing. So just incredibly written. Like I said, it's not like mind-blowing writing, but it's just real, and I truly love it. This is another one of those books where, yes, there's the sorrows, but it's definitely still a cheerful book. But I still think that that's a really nice way of climbing into another era without the depressing, oh, everyone died of sickness, because that's the usual. So it's really nice to see a book series where no one dies? I don't remember, but it's an upbeat book series. It's not the down and depressing ones. But just the whole world that she creates. She renames her town to Deep Valley, which is based off Mankato in Minnesota, and what that town was like, and it's just so charming. There's, when she travels abroad, that has like inspired me to go to Europe and see all these places that Betsy's seen, and it's the story of Betsy and her best friend Tacy, so it's kind of their adventures, which these are definitely Betsy books. The early ones I think have a little bit more of Tacy in them, but it's still the 2 of them, and it's absolutely wonderful. The next 2 book series that I have are adult book series. This one here is called Poldark by Winston Graham. This is book 1, Ross Poldark. They recently made this into a Masterpiece PBS series, so you might have seen it around after Downton Abbey finished. They kind of brought this one on, although it was also made I think in like the 70s. That one looks really bad, but it was. These were written in the 40s, but they're about right after the American Revolution in England and Cornwall. What to say about these books? They were good. I read the first 4. I think there's 9. But he wrote the first 4 books up through, I think he wrote these through the 70s. And then he stopped after book 4 and was like, okay, my series is done, I'm proud of this, good. And then 20 years later, in the 90s, he was like, oh, just kidding. And he wrote like 6 more. And those are so much darker and repulsive in what he does with the characters, and I have no interest in ruining them. I love the characters, and so I thought, well, since he decided originally the series was done after 4, I'm gonna stop after 4 because I'm happy with the ending of 4, because I know if I read the next book, I'm going to have to read the rest of them, and I'm just gonna be utterly disappointed, so I don't want to keep going. But the first 4 were good enough to make it on my list. First 2 are the best, because 3 is really dramatic and interesting and good, but it leads into 4. 4 is hard. 4 is bad, but it still has a beautiful redemptive ending, so I was okay with it. not okay. I was willing to get through it because of the ending. But I know I wouldn't want any more of that, which is why I stopped. But this series follows Ross Poldark after he returns as a soldier in the Revolutionary War, and he's coming back to meet his fiancée Elizabeth, and they are going to get married, and he comes back and she is engaged to his cousin. That all happens in chapter 1, no spoilers. So that's shock, and a bad shock, and he kind of goes downhill, and he ends up trying to reinvent his farm and to reinvent his mines and to start his life over. It's all about the mining community in Cornwall, and how he does that, and how it goes on, and his ups and downs and highs and lows, his rivalries with different people, and it's really, you can't put him down, you just have to keep going. So these are great. The last series I have is this. I love this copy. I got these for Christmas one year. They're so pretty. Oh my goodness. So here's the first one. Isn't that beautiful? It's got the engraved leather on the spine, and then the books are really wide, which I think is really fun, but they're small and they're easy to hold because of the softness, the rounded corners, and then it's just so pretty. And in The Hobbit, it even has the beautiful end pages with the maps. Now I know The Hobbit is not part of the series, so that's staying out. But Lord of the Rings, I have read the series once, but I just adored it. It was so good. I read 1,800 pages in 3 weeks, which for me was a big deal. And part of that was during school, I believe, and I still managed to do it. So I just raced through these like there was no tomorrow. They were so interesting. I had seen the movies with my family over a vacation and decided, okay, I need to read the books now because these movies were so good, and I was freaking out. So I already knew the plot line, and I think that really helped because Tolkien can get dry and he can travel on. So I think it really helped to have him already know what's coming, but they are so wonderful. This follows Frodo Baggins as he has to return the ring to where it came from because it is evil and needs to be destroyed, and this follows his adventure with his friends as he tries to conquer that task. A really good book series and totally worth the read even when it feels slow because the morals and the writing and teaching is beautiful. So those are my top 5 favorite book series. I hope you enjoyed them, or tell me your favorites in the comments below, and I'll see you in my next video soon. Goodbye!